Hello. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to symbolize negated conjunctions. So, in the previous video, we saw this sentence, Romy doesn't sing and Sandra doesn't sing. So, this is a conjunction. It's a conjunction of negations. It's not a negated conjunction. Well, so what is a negated conjunction? Well, suppose that you hear one and only one of Romy and Sandra singing. And if they were both singing, you would hear both of them, but you hear only one. So you know that either Romy or Sandra is singing, but you don't, let's say you can't see them, you can't tell the difference between their voices. So you know one of the two is singing, you don't know which one, and you know they're not both singing. So you don't want to say not R, because maybe Romy is the one singing. And you don't want to say not S, because maybe Sandra is the one singing. And you definitely don't want to say not R and not S. That says both of the things you don't want to say. That says neither of them are singing. And you know that's not true, because at least one of them is singing. So you don't want to say not R and not S. Not R and not S is a conjunction. It's a conjunction of negations. It says this sentence is false, and also this other sentence is false. Well, you just want to say it's not the case that both of them are singing. It's not the case that both Romy and Sandra are singing. So you want to say, are both Romy and Sandra singing? No. That conjunction is false. You want to deny the whole conjunction. So what we're saying is the conjunction is false, the whole thing, and that means at least one of the conjuncts is false, but maybe the other one is true, right? For the conjunction to be, if the conjunction is true if they're both true, if both of the conjuncts are true, and otherwise it's false. So when you say the conjunction is false, you're saying at least one of the conjuncts is false, but you're not necessarily saying they're both false. You're not saying they're both false. Maybe they are both false, but when you deny the conjunction, that's not what you say. So let's get clear about that. We can do two things. We can negate each conjunct. We start with a conjunction, we can stick a negation on each of the conjuncts, and we get Romy doesn't sing and Sandra doesn't sing. So we take Romy sings and deny that, and then we take Sandra doesn't sing and we negate that. Or instead, we could apply the negation not to the individual conjuncts, but to the whole conjunction, and then we'd say, it's not the case that both Romy and Sandra are singing. And these say different things. To bring that out, let's suppose that Romy sings is true and Sandra sings is false. So R is true, S is false. Okay, so because Romy sings is true, Romy doesn't sing is false. Romy is singing, she is, yes. So is it true that she doesn't sing? No. Romy doesn't sing is false. Okay, that means that one is false. Why? Well, one is a conjunction, and so both of its conjuncts have to be true for it to be true, otherwise it's false. Well, its left conjunct is Romy doesn't sing, and we just agreed that Romy doesn't sing is false. So one is also false. One says Romy doesn't sing, but no, that's not true, and so one is false. It's a conjunction with a false conjunct. Its left conjunct is false. Okay, so in this situation, one is false. Now, let's consider... let's now consider the conjunction. Now we're going to look at two, and let's consider Romy and Sandra are singing. Is that true or is that false? That's false. Why? Because we said Sandra sings is false, and Romy and Sandra are singing says that both Romy is singing and Sandra is singing. But we said no, Sandra's singing, that's false. So this Romy and Sandra are singing, that's a conjunction with a false right conjunct. So it's false. But, okay, so now look at, it's not the case that both Romy and Sandra are singing. Well, that's true. Why? It's a negation, and it's a negation of a false sentence. We take the sentence Romy and Sandra are singing, and we negate that. Well, Romy and Sandra are singing, that's false, and so that it's not the case that they're both singing, that's true. So 2, what we just looked at, is true. Okay, so in this situation, where one of them sing, and one of them doesn't sing, where Romy is singing, let's say, and Sandra is not singing, the first one is false, because the first one says it's not the case that Romy doesn't sing. Sorry, the first one says Romy doesn't sing, and also Sandra doesn't sing. No, because Romy is singing. The second one says it's not the case that both of them are singing, and that's true, because one of them isn't singing. Okay, so in this situation, they say different, they have different truth values. One's true, one's false. And so they disagree. That means they're saying different things. And that means they need different symbolizations. Well, 1 is symbolized as not R and not S, but 1 and 2 say different things. So 2 is not symbolized in this way. 2 is not symbolized as not R and not S. Okay, so then how is 2 symbolized? Well, here's a first attempt. Not R and S. But we know what this says. This says it's not the case that Romy is singing, and it is the case that Sandra is singing. The negation is inside the left conjunct, and it applies to R. That's not what we want to do. In the English sentence, it negates the whole conjunction. But in this sentence, the negation is attached to the R and not to the whole conjunction. So how do we make the negation attached to the whole conjunction? We don't want it to attach to the left conjunct. We don't want it to attach to both conjuncts. We want it to attach to the conjunction, the whole thing. We use parentheses. We put parentheses around the conjunction and then put on the negation. And then the negation attaches not to R, and we don't negate each of the conjuncts. The negation is now attached to the whole conjunction. So parentheses are punctuation. And the way they work is they make a little unit, and then we can attach negations to them. So let's look at another example. It's not the case both that Romy doesn't sing and that Sandra doesn't sing. Okay, so it's not the case of a conjunction. So what we'll do is we'll put a negation, and then we'll put parentheses around the conjunction. And then, in the second step, and then we'll turn the and in English into a conjunction symbol in logic. And now we take Romy doesn't sing and turn that into negation of Romy sings, and Sandra doesn't sing and turn that into a negation of Sandra sings, and then we turn the R's, Romy sings into R, and Sandra sings into S. So the key thing is, when we have that it's not the case both out in front, then we need to put the conjunction into parentheses. Now, in the symbolization program, that's taken care of for you. But in the derivation program, we need to learn how to read. Either way, we need to understand how parentheses are working, and we need to be able to read them in the derivations module. So, there's one more symbolization video, sort of symbolization concepts video, because not only can we negate conjunctions, but we can put them inside of conditionals, and we can put conditionals inside of conjunctions. And so we need to look at how that works too. So in the next symbolization video, that's what I'll do.